All right, Aaron Gekoski, nice to have you here, man. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I found out your stuff, found out about your work through Mark, who we had on the podcast as well. And I just really, really appreciate you taking the time. You're only in LA for 3 days, so thank you again.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Yeah, looking forward to talking to you about my work and filling you with lots of imagery of animal suffering, which everyone wants on a Tuesday morning, right? It's going to be all the cheery stuff today.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's interesting because like your work is very it's visceral and it gets a reaction, but it's not like, at least from my perspective, it's not like, oh my God, I can't look at that. I can at least look at it and be like, wow, I really feel, for these animals.
That's good to hear because that is something that I kind of battle with, is that people have enough misery in their lives. Like they don't just want to see shots of animals suffering. So you have to kind of draw the line. And if something is too upsetting, if something is too gory, then people just simply won't look at it. So I actually think that some of these images have a kind of macabre beauty to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to feel, I want people to be compelled to actually look at my imagery, but then to learn more about the story. I think you can see some of the images here, which are some of my favorite shots on the homepage.
Yeah.
Like this shot of shrimps and bycatch, I think it looks like an abstract painting. This orangutan here at a boxing match, and, it has this giant noble beast surrounded by this kind of beautiful man-made structure. And I think these are images personally that I like to blow up and show them big.
Which is what we were talking about a little before.
It drives me absolutely insane how everyone digests photography these days on these, tiny little phones. These images have to be shown large, which is why I like to print them.
Yeah.
But most people won't see them. They'll never see them that size. And it drives me slightly mad. Social media does in general, in fact, but I know it's a necessary evil. We can talk about this if you want, and I can rant for the next hour and a half just about social media.
Well, I mean,
but actually, we probably want to talk about something more interesting rather than
no. I think it's really all good stuff. I am in total agreement with you. Like as a filmmaker, the short films that I've made, I put a lot of time and a lot of effort into the final product, and to have it viewed on a phone is kind of like, are you really getting the full effect of the artwork?
You're not.
You're taking away, like if you like say one of your images, right? You blow it up real big and you're standing in front of it and you're just like, wow, it's actually breathtaking, and you have a chance to get kind of wrapped in the aura of the art, right? Mm-hmm. But then you shrink it down like this and it's just like a side thought, you're just like, oh, what's this? It goes, scroll. Oh, that's cool, I guess. Scroll. Mm-hmm. And that's it. You don't have a chance to like meditate on it.
Exactly. And because we are so inundated with imagery these days, and because phones take such good photos, really. So, if you were to go out there and take a landscape shot of what I was just saying, I went to Joshua Tree National Park, I'm taking shots on my phone that actually look, really good.
Yeah.
And if you only see them on a phone screen, it doesn't look that different to something that you would take on my 5D Mark IV. It's really when you start blowing images up to their full size that you can start to appreciate them properly.
So how do you dish out your photography to people? Like you have an Instagram.
I have. Yeah. I'm not very good at using it. I don't understand it very well. I have 4 followers, or no, I have more than that. Actually,
you got 5. 6.
Yeah, I've got 5 now. Yes, you're gonna follow me.
I got you. Yeah,
excellent. 20% more. Facebook has been a pretty big thing for me.
Yeah.
I get a lot of engagement from my posts on Facebook. So I put a story up recently about this turtle conservation center in Bali.
Mm-hmm.
Where they keep these turtles in the most like appalling conditions imaginable, and they had snakes with their mouths taped shut, and just absolutely hideous. And I put the images on Facebook on my professional page, Aaron Gekoski, environmental photojournalist.
There it is.
There it is. And I think they reached 1.7 million people, very, very quickly. So I do have quite a kind of loyal following on Facebook, and I know that if I put out a powerful story, that it's going to get shared a lot and seen by a lot of people. But being up against the fact that Facebook is definitely becoming less popular, I think, now. And I know that platforms like Instagram are probably the way to go. But I find them it's Instagram so shallow. It's just, shots of people looking hot, which is great. Yeah, it's good for escapism for, 30 seconds a day. But I find actually for serious material like mine, Instagram isn't a very good platform for me. And Facebook, you can share articles, you get much more comments and engagement. And I just find that's, maybe I'm a dinosaur. I don't know. I think that at some point there will be a better platform that comes available for photographers. Because
Yeah.
at the moment, we don't have anything that is quite perfect.
That's a good point. And especially for your work too, which is more serious. And
Yeah.
you have there's like a huge message behind your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like the photography I post on my Instagram is just like, cool scenery or whatever. There's not really more to it than that.
Yeah, that's it. I think Instagram can be quite kind of quite vacuous, I guess, and people just go on there for a little bit of escapism throughout their day to look at a hot girl.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
actually, they don't want to go to Instagram to learn anything serious or to be educated about animal welfare issues.
Yeah. So, I mean, at least at the end of the day, like you have your Facebook page and it is a platform for you to put out your stuff and like grow an awareness, for people and be like, hey, this is a thing. These animals are being treated in this way in these different countries. Like, take a look at this, and people are actually able to sink into that a little bit,
Yeah.
So that's good.
Exactly. So it is there, and I can use it, but the way I kind of prefer to get my message out there is through different mediums. So it's whether it's film. So I also make environmental films, magazines, big competitions. Competitions have been a great way to get the message out there. I won Wildlife Photographer of the Year 2 years ago, I think it was, for a shot that's on my homepage there of elephants in a palm oil plantation. And the amount of awareness that image created was just incredible. I had emails from people all over the world who said, like, I didn't even know that Borneo had elephants, let alone the fact that there's only 1,500 of them left and that they're threatened with extinction. They're like, I knew everything about orangutans in Borneo, but yeah, nothing about the elephant situation.
Yeah, this is all new to me. This is all like I don't really know much about this kind of stuff.
Well, this is the power of photography.
Yeah.
That it really is such a powerful educational tool. So look, I try and use as many different means to get the message out there as possible. Because as I kind of touched upon earlier, conservation is one of those very tricky subjects. And everyone, like when you go and you speak to broadcasters, so at the moment we're in the middle of pitching 2 conservation series. So I've been working on 2 broadcast pilots for different series. So one of them is about the exotic pet trade, and one of them is about the wildlife tourism industry, which is about this campaign called Raise the Red Flag that I've been working on for the last 2 years. And you're going out there, and I had a meeting with Netflix main production company in Bristol recently, and they kind of looked at me like, they were like, oh, this is a very nice idea, like in their most kind of patronizing voice, like, oh, well done, you've been, in the jungle making these important shows, but Netflix, they want cute and cuddly now. So that's what we're up against, is that, conservation has kind of traditionally been seen as almost a dirty word in the media. It's depressing, or it's boring, or it's for anoraks. I think things are changing, which was why it was so surprising for me to hear that about Netflix, is that it does seem that, people really are getting into conservation. But again, it comes back to that fact that a lot of the time people want to turn on the television because they want escapism and they don't want to be bombarded with more negativity. So what we try and do, particularly in our films, is it can't just be negativity throughout. It has to have some hope at the ending. So this film that we've been working on about orangutan tourism, which is the pilot for this series on Raise the Red Flag. So we've been looking at the very worst orangutan tourism operators, from the worst zoos to places where they're forced to perform and box each other, to places where they're out in the wild and people are feeding them, and like it's just an absolute shit show.
Yeah, actually, can we pull up the picture of the orangutan with the boxing gloves? And you have a couple photos of that, right?
I do, yeah, yeah. And if you go to my galleries, and then you go to wildlife tourism, and there was another image further down of well, for me, there's nothing like an emaciated orangutan in a bikini to kind of get people feeling something,
For
right?
sure.
But
Yeah.
and this is why I've never been that interested in traditional wildlife photography. I don't want to go and take a photograph of an orangutan in a tree eating a fruit. That
It's like
that's
everyone does
it's
that, right?
meaningless. It's meaningless. But actually, yeah, you take a shot of one in a boxing ring being exploited, and also it's creating something that is completely unique. And I know that a lot of the images that you're scrolling through now, shots like this have not been taken before, and that's what excites me so much about it. Yeah, so this is the last 2 years I have been traveling around the world documenting cruelty in the wildlife tourism industry. I started in Thailand a couple of years ago, just because I'd been living in Borneo, where I was presenting wildlife shows in Borneo, and had just seen a lot of these terrible zoos and performances. So I got a little bit of money from a private donor and said, look, I want to go to Thailand and explore it properly. Went there, documented it, including the boxing orangutans and various hideous zoos, and just a lot of the places that were actually covered in a Nat Geo article recently.
Hmm.
Um, Released them to the media, and they went everywhere. Because wildlife tourism is one of those issues. I think that it really affects everyone. Like, there's not a single person here in this studio today that wouldn't have been to a zoo, wouldn't have been to an aquarium, that wouldn't have, maybe ridden on an elephant at some point.
Yeah.
Everyone is affected by wildlife tourism. So that's why it became, and I sort of slowly realized when I got that kind of outpouring from the public, and I got so many people contacting me from around the world, is that this was a much bigger issue than I had thought. So that was when I started to go and investigate it in other different countries
Yeah.
as a photojournalist. And then I also realized that there wasn't a platform so people could allow their voices to be heard. So a lot of the time people would get in touch with me and they would say, well, I've seen this terrible place. What do I do about it? Who do I go to? Can I report it somewhere? And there wasn't anything available to people. So I came up with the idea to create a platform called Raise the Red Flag. So it meant that you can go online, and if you see an animal being abused in the wildlife tourism industry, then you can make a report. So built the platform, and then went to Born Free Foundation. Do you know them?
No,
Born Free?
I don't. I just want to just take one step back. So when you say make a report, who's the report sent to?
Well, that was it. So the report would then come through to a central moderator, who would then have the necessary skills to be able to say, actually, this isn't right. Something needs to be done. We need to go and investigate this. We need to work with the authorities to help this animal. So that was where I started to become unstuck, because I was like, I showed it to a lot of colleagues and friends and said, what do you think of this idea? And they were like, it's a great idea, but what happens when you start getting hundreds or thousands of reports? What are you going to do with them? And I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good point. I don't know.
Yeah.
which is a major stumbling block, because I'm a photographer. Like, I'm not I'm into animal welfare, but I'm not trained in it. I'm not a zoologist. I'm not a biologist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was then, I was like, right, okay, well, maybe I need to work with an NGO who can actually take over this side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I spoke to Born Free Foundation, who had actually commissioned me to go to some other places to document abuse in the wildlife tourism industry. And I said, look, this platform has been built. Why don't you guys take it on and continue sending me off to different destinations around the world to do what I do best, which is photograph things.
Cool.
So they said, great. They were looking to overhaul their reporting system anyway. They loved the idea. They loved the brand, and they took it on and spent kind of 18 months populating the site. And then we had a big launch in London in August. And we have various celebrity patrons on board, and the platform has got a lot of publicity. And I really think that Born Free have the expertise and resources to take the platform to the next level, because I simply don't. And I don't have the will to do it. And I don't have the knowledge.
For sure. Yeah, no, it sounds like you did a really good job with like combining your passion of photography with something that the world needs, you know, an awareness
Yeah.
for, you know, this abuse that goes on with animals in this industry. So like where's the line drawn? Is it like any zoo is bad, or like, you know, I was in Bali, monkey forest, you know, like they were, you know, which is a big old area in the middle of Ubud, and they were swinging from trees and like getting bananas and having a good time. So like, you know, like that, would that be, how do you know? You have to really dig in and investigate, or is it something that like as a tourist you go and you see it and you're like, whoa, that's kind of jacked up.
Yeah.
It's pretty open.
Yeah, it's very hard to know.
Yeah.
This is one of the problems that we're facing is, well, first of all, there's a lot of greenwashing that goes on. So there are so many places around the world that call themselves conservation centers, and it is utter bullshit. Like, it could not be further from the truth, and they just use it as a way of getting people through the door and to make money.
Make money.
So how do you know which are the good place and which are the bad ones? Well, that's difficult. That's partly where Raise the Red Flag comes in. And if it's on there, then it's a place that you shouldn't go and visit. There are kind of general rules when it comes to wildlife tourism. So any places where you can touch an animal or get close enough to take a selfie with it, or if you can ride it, or if it's used in performances, then you shouldn't go.
That makes sense to me. Like circuses?
Circuses, yep, absolute no-go. And places are starting to catch up. In England, they're banning animals used in circuses. But I've just been on a tour around Europe for the NGO Four Paws to document wildlife tourism attractions around Europe, because it's very easy sometimes to scapegoat like Southeast Asian countries and say, oh, this is just happening in Asia, and you know, and then you have that kind of white savior thing of going in and saying, no, this is bad, you shouldn't be doing that. Whereas actually it's happening all over the world. It's happening right here in America. It's happening in England. It's happening all over Europe. So I just went and documented like, you know, elephant riding in Germany. There was a circus in the Czech Republic that was like horrendous. Had like this really malnourished bear on a skateboard. It had lions that were being whipped and, you know, used in a performance. It had zebra, it had camels, and that's at a traveling circus in the Czech Republic. And if these are the things that you see with your own eyes, imagine what's happening
Scenes.
behind closed doors.
Totally.
And we saw some of the trailers where the animals are kept. I do think I have an image of this. Actually, I've got some shots. If you go back to the gallery, you can see some imagery from this recent trip. Yeah, this one. Yeah, it's this gallery. So if you scroll down, oh yeah, look, there's the lions. You can see them up a bit, go up. Yeah, and on the right there. And these lions were they were seriously unhappy. And if you scroll to the left, this was an elephant that was used in a circus in Germany.
Dang.
Where oh yeah, that's another image on the left of elephants used in the Czech Republic in a circus. So one down.
Yeah, there's just like these puppets, you know, just like these these things to be
exploited.
You know, exploited.
That's it.
Yeah,
I don't know why mankind feels like. Why do we feel like every other living being is just there for us to either exploit or to enjoy? And that's the shot of the orangutan in the bikini. That
middle.
That one Nature Photographer of the Year last year.
That one's crazy.
Yeah, pretty emotional shot. So yeah, it's happening absolutely everywhere, and it's I do think that people are starting to take these issues more seriously, and that is where the media plays a very important role to start taking more interest in some of these stories.
How'd you get into all of this?
How did I get into it? Well, I'm actually trained as a copywriter. So I worked in London for publishing companies in my early 20s. And then I started a modeling agency with my best mate from school. I did that for 4 or 5 years, which was good fun in your mid-20s.
Mm-hmm.
But then more and more, I started to kind of look in the mirror and not like what I saw. I think that's physically, my skin was getting more sort of orange, and my hair more bleached, and my teeth whiter. But that was also, I kind of didn't want to live with doing that anymore. It's such a shallow industry.
Do you surf?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't.
Because based off, I could see you surfing.
Right.
I could see
Yeah.
you surfing
Now, a
with
lot
that
of people
description.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I actually don't. I don't. It takes up too much time.
It'd be a lot.
Yeah.
It'd be a
Yeah,
lot.
exactly. So I then, I decided, okay, like I'd always loved wildlife films. And I thought, if I'm going to make a major change in my life, I was in my late 20s, this is the time to do it. So I went to bed one night, didn't sleep a wink, and I was like, right, I'm leaving. And I went off around the world and started diving, and then started looking more into marine conservation. And then I went and did a wildlife filmmaking course in South Africa. And then I went to Mozambique, bought myself an underwater camera and housing, went to learn underwater film in Mozambique, met some
Cool.
guys making a documentary on shark finning, and then spent a couple of years living in Mozambique, making this film. And it was just fascinating. Like, for the first time in my life, it was like I actually kind of, felt alive. And I was learning about the ocean and about conservation and about diving and about living in Africa. And it was just like a sponge, kind of absorbing everything.
Did you feel like you had a purpose, or was it just a passion that you felt at that time?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. I suddenly, I felt like this is, it sounds a bit cliched or a bit corny, but I thought, like, this is what I'm meant to be doing with my life. And that feeling hasn't changed. This was 10 years ago, and I
Oh,
still
man.
feel this every single day. I'm incredibly lucky.
Oh.
There's not that many people who can say, I have found what I'm meant to do. I know I was meant to, and I will do this for the rest of my life,
That's amazing.
unless I have a nervous breakdown first, which could easily happen.
But I mean, even if you do, I feel like you would still there'd still be like a spark, or a passion to pursue, at some point, right? It sounds like you found your calling.
Yeah, I think I have. And what I'm so lucky with is that there's so many. I shouldn't say lucky, that's really the wrong word. But there's so many stories out there that need more exposure. So I'm constantly working across different species in different countries and continents and the far corners of the earth
Wow.
to document these issues. So I feel like I could never get bored. I'm just
That's good.
organizing I'll give you an example. Like, I'm currently on a trip 4 months away. I've been to 16 countries so far, across 4 continents, working on 3 different broadcast films at the moment, and then currently organizing projects through to, May next year. So it's really, really busy, which is great. It's not without its downsides. It's very tiring. It's very stressful. Working sometimes in dangerous situations, probably not great on your mental health, and you don't get any stability. Like, I'm constantly living out of a bag, and it would be nice to at least. I'm 39. Like, I was just joking to my friend that I don't own any keys. Like, I'm a 39-year-old who has no keys. Surely, like, even to a bike or something. But no, I don't have one.
I mean, that sounds kind of cool, though. Like,
like-
you don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
It does,
That
yeah.
sounds
It does.
nice.
It does sound cool, I guess, in a way, but it can be unsettling.
So,
I've got used to it now. Like, I'm now used to the fact that you just pack and move in
Yeah.
a moment's notice. But that's not to say that it doesn't take its toll.
what do you do to relax? What do you do to chill and like?
I drink whiskey.
Okay. What kind?
Anything that's put in front of me. People always say, like, how do you cope with these slightly distressing projects that you work on? I'm like, well, I have my therapist on speed dial and a bottle of whiskey in the other hand, and they kind of balance each other out. So to relax, I don't do a lot of that, I suppose.
Oh, man.
I don't do a lot of it because it's been so crazy that you're just going from project to project to project. I guess, I'll go and try and go home to the UK and see my family. They just scooped me up. It was a couple of months ago. I came back from the jungles of Borneo for this film on orangutan tourism,
Mhm.
and they just picked me up from the airport, and they were like, "What has happened to you?
Oh man.
Like, come home, sit on the couch, and we're just going to feed you, and like you're going to sleep." Because it's like you're working, really 16-hour days in the jungle, like non-stop travel. We'd just been, it had just taken us 4 days to travel across Indonesia on public transport because we're always, we have small budgets for things. We're
Yeah.
always trying to cut corners, carrying like, 60 kilos of luggage each, on planes, trains, automobiles, public transport, and we were traveling for 4 days across Indonesia for one interview.
Wow.
And it's exhausting. It's really, really tiring. But like, I shouldn't really complain because, I wouldn't, there's nothing else in the world I'd rather be doing, but just sometimes you need to go and you need to then just like lock yourself away from the world and just completely de-stress.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm big into yoga and trying to meditate. Meditating is very difficult.
It is very,
it's like the hardest thing.
they're like, yeah, cut your mind off. Don't think about anything. I'm like, but I want to think about things.
Yeah.
I like thinking about the things that they're telling me not to think about.
I know.
But no, I agree. Like you need some way of, of just completely cutting off.
Yeah.
Whether it's exercise, whether it's reading, whether it's movies, that you can't just immerse yourself in these subjects all the time. So no, you're going to have to give me some tips about meditating.
Oh, for sure. I just know a little bit of stuff. I read one book once and I practiced and I did yoga teacher training and that was about it.
Okay, well that's good. That's a start.
Yeah, I mean, from what I gathered, it's just like a muscle. No one wants to work out. Like working out kind of sucks.
Yeah, it does.
At the end, when you're done, it's like, oh, I feel great. I feel awesome. I did it. It was hard, and I went through it. And it's like I guess the same with meditating. Like you just got to be like, this kind of sucks, and you got to get into that flow, and
then afterwards, it's worth it.
it's nice. Yeah, you take a breath in, and I feel like I can slow down now.
Yeah,
it's nice.
yeah. I think I'm opposed to it as well because I've been living in Bali a little bit, and there are like so many of these like yogi kind of like meditators who walk around in their elephant pants. And
Dude,
and then they like take pictures of themselves like being so spiritual.
Yeah,
I'm
totally.
like, if this is meant to be such a personal thing, then why the hell are you like in your underwear on a rock, like meditating and telling all of your vacuous followers about it? Like sorry, I was saying I wasn't going to get into this subject again.
it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine, usual.
Yeah, I was in Bali for a yoga retreat for like 10 days. And some of these people were like that.
Yeah.
Some of these people for sure. And like it was cool though. Like we were in Ubud, like the yoga like area. And Christian's actually going later this year too. So he's amped about it.
Oh, you're going to be in elephant pants in no time.
Dude, I bought elephant pants.
Did you?
I bought elephant pants. I straight up bought but they didn't fit afterwards.
I'm gone.
Dude, no.
I'm gone. I'm out of here.
I was like, I can get into the elephant pant vibe right now. It was really comfy, but man, it was a good time. I think the most intense thing though that happened when I was there, we went to these different. I forget the name of the communities, but basically there's like all these little communities of homes and families, and they're all off kind of on the side of the road, and they're old. They kind of look like each one is a temple. And we went into one, and we were bringing eggs, coffee, and rice to families that couldn't afford that. And I was like, okay, this will be interesting. See what's going down here. And we did it 3 times. And on the second one, we went to this family, man, and it was like this. They were living out of this concrete cube, and like in the back corner in the dark, there was like one cot on the ground, and there was 4 or 5 kids, grandma, grandpa, mom, and dad, and one of the kids was mentally challenged. And I was like, oh my God, dude, oh, this is so rough. But I looked at them and like they looked happy, and we brought them the stuff. We brought them the eggs and the rice and the coffee, and like the grandma started crying. Dude, I couldn't handle it. It was sad. It was sad for sure. And I'm standing there just like trying to take it in, just trying to take the moment in. And And then the group is like, yo, let's get a picture with them. Let's get a picture with them. And I was like, oh, I'm good. And they all got together and like took a picture with everybody, like as the grandma's crying and like holding his eggs. I'm like, guys, no pictures. Like, let's just chill right now.
And then they want to send it to show it online on social media and show the good that they've been doing, presumably, right?
Like I'm sure that may have happened. I don't know exactly what happened after what they did with those pictures, but I was just like, man, I stepped out. I was like, I'm not gonna be in that picture. That's kind of awkward. But you know, I kind of, there was a tiny part of me that felt like this family is happy, you know, though they have basically nothing besides themselves. You know, they have the family and the community. And they were able to live on the most minimal amount of stuff, you know? And I thought that was cool. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I think so. Some of there will be other stresses, of course, that you won't see. And there's like I was in Africa for 6 years, and that was often people would come and they would say, well, they seem very happy, but actually, for example, infant mortality is through the roof, and they might have lost 2 children, or like this. The stresses are very different there. So I don't know whether it's safe to say that what you see on the outside is actually the true reflection of the story.
Oh, I think certainly not.
Yeah, I think it's there's different stresses there, but for sure, being kind of like cut off from some of the things that we are constantly subjected to, living, and particularly you here in LA, for example, and what I experienced living in London, and that constant pressure to further yourself, or to you can do anything you want. So
it's constantly.
Yeah. So then that leads to discontent, because you're always thinking, well, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do something else. Whereas actually, if you grow up and you know that you will then go on to do a certain type of job, or you will go on just to work with your family, there's none of that expectations.
There's peace in that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think some of the mental pressures that we face growing up in the Western world and the developed world are quite intense, and that's why I think you see so many mental health issues, particularly amongst kind of our generation.
That's interesting. Yeah,
constantly striving for something bigger and better.
Yeah. I mean, I feel it. I'm here in Los Angeles, and I'm trying to figure out what's the best thing for my career. How do I further myself? How do I make more money? And then my parents are in Georgia, and I talk to them maybe once a month. I see them once a year, and I'm just thinking, like, am I selfish being out here doing this stuff just for myself? It's like I gotta survive, right? I eventually want to get married and have a kid and all this, but sometimes I feel selfish, going for that constant
chasing your dreams.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, well, is it gonna be like this when I'm 80?
Yeah,
hopefully, if I live to 80,
possibly it could be.
Yeah.
That middle class cycle of discontent.
But I think it's cool though, because you found something that you love, your passion, right? And you're going with that. And despite how difficult it may be, that's what you need to do, and you're going with it, and you love it still.
Yes, I do.
That's great.
And I'm constantly challenged by it, and creatively as well. I think that is a big thing, to be constantly stimulated by something, and to always try and grow as a photographer, and grow I was going to use the word art form, but it sounds a wee bit pretentious. But yeah, your art form.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Constantly learning, whether it's from different photographers or through YouTube tutorials. You constantly keep having to push the boundaries creatively.
Absolutely. Because like without a challenge, you're going to be bored.
Yeah.
And if it's too much of a challenge, it's, you might dip out.
Yes.
So I think it's finding that perfect challenge in your area,
And it's a challenge. It's a huge challenge. Yeah. Environmental photography, like your moment can be like 1 second.
Yeah.
You miss it, and that image is gone. Or you get your shot, it's not framed right. It's not quite in focus. And I'm constantly kicking myself, and thinking I could have done a better job, and lamenting my skills as a photographer, which is good and bad. because I think I give myself an unnecessarily hard time sometimes. But also, if you weren't striving for perfection
Yes.
in your work, then you would never grow, and you'd
I
be
yeah.
stuck at the same level. Same with you as a filmmaker, right?
I feel the exact same way.
Hmm.
It has to be perfect. You're not going to get there, but there is a strive for perfection and lots of detail.
Exactly.
Lots of detail.
Exactly. And with environmental photography, I always say that there's four facets that I'm looking for
Okay.
for a great environmental photograph.
Okay.
And number one, that's an unusual subject. So we'll use my elephant shot as an example. Unusual subject. That's pygmy elephants in Borneo.
Do you want to pull up the
So
shot?
you can go, if you just go back to galleries, there actually might be a couple of images that fulfill this criteria. At the top, environmental. Yeah, there's a couple of images that might fulfill this criteria. So top left is the elephant shot.
This is good too because the people who listen to this podcast, they're up and coming filmmakers, photographers, and creatives. So this is going to be great for people listening now who want to have advice, want to get advice from a professional like yourself.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, can you find yourself an unusual subject? And here we have 1,500 of these animals endemic to Borneo left. Are these subjects displaying some type of interesting behavior?
Christian, go back to the
And then
the
you
elephants.
see the elephants. They are all they're in a herd. There's 3 generations here. They're huddled together, seemingly trying to comfort each other. And then we have a dramatic setting, and it doesn't get much more dramatic than this palm oil plantation that was actually being replanted. It's this desolate, desecrated, man-made scene from hell. And then we have some type of appropriate or dramatic lighting. Here it's very overcast, so the lighting was even. We have these dark clouds on the horizon. And if you can combine those 4 facets, subject, behavior, setting, lighting, then you have images that will win major awards. It's probably only happened to me probably a handful of times in my work. Like if you go back to the gallery, to my environmental gallery, how many of these images actually fulfill all of that criteria? Not that many. Maybe this is a shot I just took of the otter. If you just go to the left, this is a shot I really like. I took recently.
Is this Japan?
Yes, this is Japan. I was making a film about otters and the exotic pet trade. And like we were saying earlier, creating a completely unique image is one of the greatest thrills and challenges for an environmental photographer. And I can guarantee you that no one has ever taken anything that looks like this photo. So here we have a young girl in a Tokyo apartment, and they have pet otters. This is a bit of a craze in Southeast Asia that they're keeping otters as exotic pets, despite the fact that otters make the worst pets possible, and often they've been stolen from the wild. The parents are killed in order to get the babies. So it's really quite a complex issue. And the young child was just, looking out to the city, and you have the skyline there, and she was just having a look out to the city, and then suddenly the otter ran across the windowsill. You have all the child's toys on the left, and just perfect framing. So I think that's kind of one of my favorite images. Actually, my favorite images always change depending on the job that I've just been on. There are a couple of shots that I've taken that will always kind of be favorites of mine, but it changes all the time depending on what I'm working on.
The one of the woman diving spearfishing.
Yes,
that one is so good.
Where would
Oh my
that
goodness!
be? That might be under marine conservation.
Was that like a candid photo, or did you ever pose? And
this was a story. Yeah, it's just down to the left. Yeah, there, that lady. That's on my homepage.
that's so good.
So this, we made a series about a year ago called Timor-Leste from Below. Actually, all of your listeners can go to www.scubazoo.tv to see some of the environmental series that we've made.
Cool.
And this was a 10-part show all about Timor-Leste, or East Timor, which is a tiny little country next to Indonesia in Southeast Asia. Absolutely fascinating place, still recovering from war. not that many visitors or tourists at all, but has the most incredible marine resources. I'm actually going to be there in 2 weeks, leading a photography tour out there, and we're going to see they have an annual blue whale migration.
Oh, whoa.
They have resident sperm whales. They have resident dugong. They have thousands of dolphins. There's 25 cetacean species just in this small body of water, and there's no other boats. There's no other tourists. So you can go out on the boat, and in a single day, you have the opportunity to see, yeah, blue whales, sperm whales, thousands of dolphins, and potentially, if you want to, then a dugong in the morning.
What's a dugong?
Dugong is it's like a manatee.
Okay. So you're diving in. You're diving in and taking shots like this.
So sorry, going back, that was a very long-winded way for me to explain this this photo. So on one of the islands off the coast of Dili, which is the capital of East Timor, there's an island called Etoro, which has technically the world's most biodiverse reef. More fish and coral species counted by Conservation International on one dive than anywhere else on the planet.
Wow.
And they have this community of females who decided, like, they saw all of their partners who were going out fishing and feeding the family and making money, and they thought, well, why can't we do this as well? So they formed a group called the Wawata Topu, which means women that dive, and they taught themselves how to spearfish, and they do it in all of their traditional clothing using these amazing handmade goggles. And if you go back to the gallery a second, yeah, you can see on the right, yeah, that's one of the ladies.
That's a good shot.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's using a 35mm lens. I quite like to use that lens for portraits, which is a bit unusual, but it gives that very like visceral kind of looming in feeling that you wouldn't get. I find sometimes, like, if you shoot portraits with a 50mm, 85mm, 100mm, it flattens everything too much.
Yeah.
But here, like, you get these warts that are really like popping out at you.
Yeah, there's depth on this for sure.
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. You get every pore in the skin. So yeah, I think kind of that's something that I've been trying to build into my photography, is using unusual techniques that might not be applied to conservation photography. So I've been getting some tips, for example, from like a good friend of mine is a very high-end fashion photographer, and he's just given me some very simple tips that he uses. And I'm like, well, what if we can apply some of these to environmental photography? Like, how cool would that be? So if you go back, I'll give you another example. So if you go back to the wildlife tourism section and scroll down, okay, left, yeah, middle image, that orangutan there, yeah. So this image was taken using Christmas tree lights, which was just an idea that I came up with. So it's holding Christmas tree lights in front of your lens and then shooting through them. And you get this very cool kind of lens flare type feel to it. And again, it adds something different to an image. Without that, I think I've shown it to a lot of photographers, and it's either kind of love it or loathe it. A lot of them are like, that is ridiculous. That is such a stupid idea. It would be much better without those flares. But actually, I think it adds something a little bit different.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, because otherwise it'd be kind of just fur on the left.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, he's given me sort of lots of other tools and ideas that I'm now experimenting with. And one of the big things is lighting. Every fashion and commercial photographer knows that photography is all about lighting. But what if you can take those lighting principles that are used for commercial photography and apply them to environmental photography?
I think that'd be really cool.
So now I always travel with sort of like a basic softbox kit in order to try and get. So if you go back, and it really does make a huge difference. Scroll up. Really does make a massive difference to how your imagery looks. I don't see it. No, it might be in the environmental section.
This is good because I want to talk about what's in your...
and on the right, top right. Yeah, that shot. So there we have the backlighting from the morning sun, but then I just have my director on the right who is using this like very cool, lightweight softbox system, which I use the Godox AD 200.
And you carry that around in the bag?
I carry it around. It's only like, it's like this big, but geez, they're powerful. They're like almost as powerful as Pro Photos, but also probably about 20% of the price.
Nice.
And they're just, yeah, so I'll have that, and I will have like a speed light as well, so then you can have a bit of fill in. But sometimes, of course, you don't have time for this. Like I was saying earlier, that moment might be gone in a second. I used to have a more scattergun approach to photography. Just try and cover the scene as much as possible. And now I try and go in with a little bit more of a plan. Like I would rather come away from a scene with 1 or 2 shots that I love, as opposed to 10 shots that are good.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So this was a shot that I had in mind when I was approaching. This is at the Borneo Orangutan Survival Foundation in Kalimantan in Borneo, and I've seen these shots of the orangutans being pushed around in wheelbarrows a lot, and they're often shot with an 85mm lens, or the 70-200 long lens, compressed, being pushed down a platform. And I thought, actually, let's use this 35mm, 16-35 again, which also just gives it much more of a kind of visceral feeling. I really like using close focus wide angle for environmental photography.
Well, because you're there. It's like you're part of the scene versus just a flat, distant, zoomed in.
You want people not just to see the animal, but to actually be the animal.
Yeah.
And like if you go back to, I'll give maybe some more examples of this. So go, there on the left, that rat. If you go up a bit. So this, close that. Yeah, that one. Yeah, I think
what is that?
That was almost shot with a fisheye, actually.
What's in his nose?
It's actually not coming out of its nose. It's coming out of of its harness, which is behind its head. It just looks like it's coming out of its nose, which is a bit unfortunate. But these are rats in Cambodia that have been trained to sniff out landmines.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and these rats they're saving lives out there, and because Cambodia, again, still recovering from war, and it's got millions of these landmines still in all the field, scattered all over the whole country. So they're using these rats that can now sniff them out. So I covered that as a story for Asian Geographic magazine. But yeah, I think that was using a fisheye lens. It means that you can get really close to the subject.
Yeah.
And it means that, again, like I was saying, you want people not just to see it, but to actually be it. And that's something that I have applied to a lot of the wildlife tourism images. So if we go back to wildlife tourism, maybe top one, top middle there, same thing. I think that shot at maybe 16mm. And I think it's just a very powerful tool. I think actually because I started, a lot of my photography was underwater.
Yeah.
And underwater, the rule is to get close and then get closer again, because you want to minimize the amount of water between yourself and the subject.
Okay.
And that's in order to get the crispest image.
I see.
And the best colors. So that's why underwater photographers shoot almost everything with a fisheye lens, because you want to be shooting from here.
Yeah.
If I shoot you as a subject, me to you,
murky,
meter away. Yeah, you get too many particles, too much water between you. But if you actually get on top of your subject, then you'll get the best results.
That's cool.
So that was when I started applying it more to environmental photography, to quite powerful effects. But I think you're constantly changing it. You do want to have your own style and your own signature, but you also don't want to just stick to that. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself.
Yeah, you got to reinvent a little bit.
Which is what I'm saying, which is why I've started using slightly different tools. I've actually got my camera bag here.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that.
Do you want me to
bring it up? Yeah.
I don't know if I've got a lot of my bits and bobs in here. This might just be more. Oh yeah, no, I've stripped a lot of stuff out. But here's a little tour of my stripped down camera bag.
Do you want to bring this up like this?
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. So 5D Mark IV, which I upgraded to recently. I had a wonderful donor. People are amazing. Like I have so much support for my work because that's always one of the biggest challenges is how do you actually fund this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the things that I struggle with the most is actually getting funding for these projects. But sometimes, people will contact me and be like, I saw that you were interested in a new camera. Like maybe I can help you out. And some guy then put $2,000 in my account the next day.
That's awesome.
Someone
That's
bought me a
nice.
drone. Someone bought me a GoPro 7 yesterday, which is really nice. Like, I feel kind of bad about it, but
As long as you use it, you got to use it.
as long as you use it for the right purposes, yeah, then that's okay, I think. So then lenses, I just bought the Tamron 150 to 600, which is amazing. The G2.
Oh my goodness.
But it's a beast to
So that's
carry around.
what would be here.
Yeah, but the image stabilization is insane. Like you're shooting handheld 600mm at 1/40th and still getting sharp images. It's beautiful, and it's not that expensive. The main consideration for me is always, well, of course, budget, but also weight.
Yeah.
Everything comes with me wherever I go.
Yeah.
So I have to have, and you know what it's like. You're like, oh, but then wouldn't it be nice if I had this prime lens or this prime lens, or I can't travel without this. So then it starts growing very quickly. So I just have to kind of limit myself to this camera bag, and then I have another small bag for lighting.
Yes.
And then my clothes, and that's pretty much all I travel with.
So are you out there like with this on your back and then the lighting one on your front?
The lighting one goes in my suitcase with my clothes.
Okay.
So I have those two bags. But again, like I said, a very simple softbox.
Yeah.
The Godox, speed light, and then a couple of like little tools that I'm using, like the Christmas tree lights or like lens flare sticks.
And then do you make a day bag when you go out?
And then a day bag. Bag plus this camera bag.
So it's like camping. It's like backpacking a little bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Very, very heavy backpacks.
So what else we got?
So we have. I just bought this lens. I just bought this 2 weeks ago. I was using the Canon 24-105, but it was the old one, and it just wasn't good enough. So I have changed to the Tamron after being so impressed with the 150 to 600 and particularly the image stabilization and image quality. And I read reviews about this, which is the 2470
Nice.
f2.8, and it has image stabilization, which the Canon one doesn't have.
Okay. Yeah.
So I just took my first shots on this the other day. So I don't want to say too much because I haven't looked at the images yet, but I've heard very good things. So this is my all-purpose lens. I wish I had it on my recent European wildlife tourism trip, but unfortunately I didn't. This is my workhorse, which is the best thing I ever bought, which is the 1635.
Is that L?
Canon, 1635L.
Very nice.
Just a wonderful lens, and probably 60% of images you'll see on my website were taken with this.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. So that's like the
close
main
focus, wide angle.
Yeah.
That's my main one, but it would be interesting to see when I start using the 2470. Well, if I like that, then maybe that will become my main lens. Macro. Yeah, 100mm. Love for portraits.
Oh, nice.
Let me see if we go to where might some be? Galleries, maybe wildlife tourism. There's got to be some. Oh, actually, the one I showed you earlier of the orangutan with the Christmas tree lights, that was shot with the 100mm.
Was it?
Amazing. The quality, prime lenses. As we know, the quality is that much better. They're just not that practical for these sorts of jobs. So then, if you go back to the galleries, I'll just give some examples of lenses that I'm using. Oh no, sorry, stay on wildlife tourism is fine. Oh yeah, that snake.
The snake.
That snake was shot. Yeah, that's 100mm macro. And then if you go up, and then the orangutan in the middle. No, sorry, not that one. The one above it. Yeah, that one. That's again using that close focus wide angle. So that's getting. I'm probably only a couple of feet away from this orangutan.
Yeah.
And I think you're really seeing his world there.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's probably all he sees. Like,
yeah, that's all he's seen for the last 13 years. Unfortunately, he was rescued from the boxing shows in Thailand. And then because there's nowhere to put these rescued orangutans, a lot of the time they end up languishing in cells like this or cages like this. So the NGO who are working, who have all of these rescued orangutans, are working to find them suitable release areas. But this is hugely expensive, as you can imagine, and it's not so easy. You can't just take all these animals that were rescued from the wildlife tourism industry and then just release them into the wild, because they would never survive. So a lot of the time, places that will take them on are left in this predicament of what to actually do with the animals.
Are they ever released
Well, they
once
can,
they've gone through some sort of process, or is it like they stay in this area that is monitored forever?
they can go to pre-release sites or like semi-wild locations. So a shot that I took recently, this is my favorite shot I've taken. If you go back to the galleries, oh no, I know that. So go wildlife at the top. Okay, and down. Yes, okay, on the left. Yeah, that shot of the orangutan.
Oh my goodness.
Mother and baby.
So cute.
So that was one of the rescued orangutans from Thailand, and that particular orangutan was actually suitable for release. So this is a semi-wild location, and then she just gave birth to this little baby. Don't know if you can see the butterfly as well that's landed on the mother's head.
Oh, I thought that was like a tag of some sort.
Yeah, no,
that's awesome.
Crazy, right?
Wow.
So that's a nice kind of story of hope there. And they do have all these other animals that they're hoping to put in these semi-wild locations soon.
Very nice.
Sorry, I digressed. So that was the 100 mil. And then 50 mil, of course. Like I say, if I could shoot everything on prime lenses, I would, because the quality is so good. I have something in a dirty old sock. Oh, yes, this is a new lens that I haven't used yet as well. I just went back to the UK and stocked up 35 mil f2.
Can I see this?
Yeah, 35 f2. Because
Nice.
I was shooting everything on my 16 to 35.
Yeah.
I was shooting a lot at 35. And then I read really good reports about this lens, and I was like, well, if you're shooting so much at 35, and then you can get even better quality with a prime lens,
Yeah,
then
might as well.
let's give it a go. It'll be interesting to see if it is a big step up in quality from just using the 1635, which of course gives a lot more flexibility.
So do you run tests when you do that? Like, will you shoot a test image of like a prime versus a zoom, and you'll see, okay, here's the artifacting here, or so you don't get the light quality on this one and all this?
I'm not one of those hugely technical photographers.
Yeah.
I go by feel a lot, and I will just know if I take that lens out for a couple of days, and I will just know what feels better.
Totally.
Yeah. So I'm not someone who is, could tell you about lens dynamics and how they work and operate. I couldn't take it apart and put it back together again. I've got no idea, but I know what I like. And this is a little, again, just using slightly different techniques. So this is here. Have you heard of these? The Maya optic. This is like from the 1950s.
This is a lens here?
Yep. Yeah. And it gives this soap bubble bokeh look to it. So yeah, the bokeh is all these tiny little circles and bubbles, which looks really cool.
So any light that is blurred out in the foreground or background will look a bit different with this one.
And well, everything looks a little bit softer as well. It looks much more filmic.
Awesome.
I do sometimes find that these lenses, the new ones, are so good. They're so sharp.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, again, with film, you want things to look a little bit softer and more forgiving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I would love to. Oh, I did take a shot with this. I can show you an example. If you go back to wildlife tourism, you might not even notice the difference. Scroll down. There should be a black and white baby orangutan. Black and white baby orangutan. Maybe it's not on my website. It's a shame. It's a good shot. Should be. Oh, no. Okay. Sorry. Scrap that. It's a really good shot. I should put it on my website. But yeah, it's just it looks like it's shot on film.
I feel you. I shoot mostly film now. I love the characteristics and the oddities of different stocks, and I like the, the grunginess sometimes, or you leave it out in the sun for a little too long and you get a look. I love that stuff. Otherwise it's like very clean, and just like sterile and like this is it.
Sterile is a good way of putting it. Yeah, exactly. That's what how I sometimes feel with the modern lenses. But it's a lot more of a risk,
Yeah,
isn't it? Because
yeah,
you can always use Photoshop to make things look a little bit more vintage,
absolutely.
can't you? But you can't necessarily use it to make it sharper.
Yeah, and I just do like random, like, oh, that's a nice scene there. I'll take my time and shoot this. But if you're doing what you're doing, like having a digital camera is like, it's so necessary.
Yeah, completely. So that's why I always err on the side of caution. Sometimes if I have a little bit more time and I want to experiment, then I might use that. If you shot something, you have to get it in the can first.
Yeah.
In the can, and then you can get creative.
That makes sense.
This is something I would really recommend to anyone who's watching this.
Is that a little flash?
Like,
What is
these
that?
are amazing.
Oh my god.
So yeah, they're just little on camera video light.
That's nice.
Yeah, they're great. And you can so if you go to again, I'm not sure if this will have been put up. I'm not sure if it will be up on my site yet. I just use it as a little spotlight. I was just in the Czech Republic photographing a python vet for a film I'm making about pythons and the exotic pet trade. And just, he was in an operating room, and I just put this light right above him, and it gives that kind of studio feel, very stark.
It's
And
super small.
Yeah, get a couple of these, place them in different places, use them to accentuate something. You want a bit of light on that, or
It feels like the thing's made of tank metal. Like you could just drop it and be all good.
Yeah. They're very sturdy.
That's awesome.
So you don't need like crazy big setups. You can just get a bit inventive. And this is maybe $100, $80, something like that, and just a very useful thing to have in your kit bag.
What else you got?
That might be. I've taken a few things out, but I think some filters, speed light, nothing too exciting. I don't have my lighting bag with me, but it should give you guys a sort of general feel for what I have in there. Let's get this. It's always challenge trying to like walk through in an airport and be like, this doesn't weigh anything. Really nice and light. And then when they catch you and they're like 16 kilos. Trying to pack as light as possible is a constant challenge.
Yeah, man, Aaron, I really, really appreciate you coming out here. It's been cool learning about what you got in your bag and like all the different things that you have to go through to get the shots that you go through and everything, and all the tips that you've given us. That's really, really, really awesome, man.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate you talking to me about it. This is something that I want to do. Is I want to spend a bit more time. You can get really carried away just being out on location, and what I realize I need to do is become a little bit more commercial about it, which is why I'm in America at the moment, as well as making a film about pythons and the exotic pet trade. But it's so we can meet people like yourself, and to try and make what I am doing more of a commercial enterprise, I suppose. So like one thing that I'm looking at the moment is we're calling it an executive producer experience. So what this is a way of us, because currently sitting on all these incredible stories that need to be told.
Yeah.
But the biggest challenge is funding them. Filmmaking, as you know, is not a cheap business.
Absolutely not.
When you take into account all your crew and travel. And we always do everything we can to keep costs at a minimum. Like you would not believe the budgets that we can kind of work with. So one way that we're looking to try and fund some of these is by bringing people on board on our shoots. So it's like, okay, we are currently working on this orangutan tourism film. We're working on a film about elephant conservation. We're pitching a film about chimpanzee conservation, which is fascinating. It's such a fascinating story about what's happening to chimpanzees who are just being wiped out left, right, and center by traditional medicine, the exotic pet trade, being deforestation. So we have sitting on all of these ideas. So it's like, okay, well, why not bring people out who can come on board with the film, and they're executive producers on the project, but actually they get to join us on shoot and have the experience of a lifetime.
Oh, that's
So that
awesome.
they get to come to the jungles of Africa, where we want to go to Liberia and we want to go to Guinea to shoot this documentary about chimps. Or we want to, we're about to go to a voodoo festival in Benin.
Oh my God, I'd be so
Benin
down.
and
I'd be so
Togo.
down for that.
Yeah, so
Oh
so you
man,
get people to come along and come on board, and their funding is helping us to tell these hugely important stories, and they get, of course, credits, and they get to have the experience of a lifetime.
where do people go to?
Well,
to,
this is
to do
something
this?
I'm just developing at the moment.
Yes.
Part of the reason why I'm in LA. But if people go to my website, which is just aarongekoski.com, and just get in touch with me, we have a slate of projects that is changing all of the time, and really looking for people who might be interested in coming on board and who can actually help us get these out there and come join us on trips. Like, I cannot even begin to tell you some of the experiences that we have, whether you're face to face with a blue whale, or whether you're releasing, pangolins and orangutans in the jungles of Borneo, or you're at this voodoo festival in Africa. Like, this is kind of what I do, and this is kind of my life, and I would love to open this up to other people and for them to come and explore it and enjoy it with me.
That sounds incredible. I like to travel at least once a year outside of the country, so I might be hitting you up on that as well.
Come for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I can happily send you like more details of some of the projects that we're working on. And
Fantastic.
it's not always I always have to like put that caveat in. I'm like, look, we do things in a very rustic way. Like, it often involves like a very basic accommodation and food, and traveling on buses across the continent, and like whatever.
It's a story. They're
I'm
not going to forget
certainly
that.
not doing this for the money. I can tell you that much. Like, if we can get a bit of budget to make a film, we will make the film, whatever happens, because I just want to tell these stories. And like, wildlife is being absolutely decimated left, right, and center. We're in the midst of a 6th mass extinction event. Whether it's exotic pets, traditional medicine, overfishing, pollution, animals are being hit from all sides. So whatever we can do, I think, as filmmakers and photographers and working in the media to get these stories out there, then let's do it.
That's awesome.
So I'd love to welcome you on any shoots that we have.
Absolutely. Heck yeah, man. Any other places you want to, is aarongekoski.com? Any other spots?
That's the best place. Like I said, I'm a bit old school. I like to kind of keep my website quite updated, and that's the sort of central bulletin for my work. But I am also on Instagram and Facebook as well, whether it's personal or professional.
Cool.
Then those are the platforms that I use the most. Or people just drop me an email, info@aarongekoski.com.
Aaron, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
I
It's been a
appreciate
real
it.
pleasure.
Thanks for
talking
coming
to
out.
you.